So I am here to talk to you about the 3 ways to manage your cool. Now, it's not the end all be all solution to everything, but if you can use these 3 rules or these 3 steps, then it can help ground you until you have an opportunity to come and talk with your caregiver coach. So if you're spending too much time alone and you're only working with your loved one, you are going to feel isolated. You're spending too much time in their world. And a lot of times their world isn't always that stable, right? And you are going to feel alone. You are going to feel isolated and you are going to feel like there is no way out. And that is why it is so important for you to use your support sessions to help you stay grounded, to be able to understand that you're going to have these feelings of anger and frustration, but we have to be able to sort of hold it up into the light and really look at it and see how we can get through it. So here are some ways that you can get through and deal with those daily frustrations that you have as a caregiver. Rule number 1 is to practice forgiveness. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, you have to forgive yourself for becoming angry. I mean, nobody is a saint. Of course, you're going to be frustrated by the things that you face, right? If you're answering the same questions over and over again, if you're cleaning up the same messes over and over again, if you're trying to reason with your loved one and they're not in the mood or even have the ability to reason, you start to think you're going to lose your mind and you get really frustrated and angry. In many cases, you're dealing with maybe a spouse or a loved one, a parent that you've had a completely different relationship with. And here you are needing to act, parent-like in order to get them to take medications, in order to get them to bathe, in order to get them to go to doctor's appointments. That's really hard to be able to flip what you feel your relationship should be like to what your relationship is becoming. I mean, you are human, right? This change in relationship is really difficult to accept, and it's really frustrating. And it's natural to lose your cool and get angry. Secondly, you must forgive your loved one. They're dealing with their loss of independence. Their life is changing. Remember that they don't always see themselves as we see them. They see themselves of what they were before they had this disease or before they had this condition, whether it be dementia or some debilitating disease. They want to see themselves as they were, and they want to be treated as independent as they were. And that acceptance of what has happened to their body, what is happening to their mind, is a constant struggle for them. And what can they do? The only thing they control is how they can lash out. And unfortunately, as caregivers, we're the ones that often take the brunt of their frustration. So we have to put ourselves into their shoes and understand that not only has our lives changed, but their lives have changed too. And so we have to be able to empathize with them and the situation that they are in. Not pity them, but have an understanding. You cannot control the amount of time it takes them to reach this acceptance that they need help, that their life has changed, that maybe they can't do the things they thought they could do before, like driving, like making meals, right? Or making decisions involving finances. It's really hard to come to that acceptance, but we can be there with them and help them through it. but sometimes it's like knocking our heads together with them. But we have to find a way to forgive them as they work through this acceptance. And that can be really hard and really frustrating. Sometimes the hardest part is realizing that one day they're able to be very reasonable and very logical in their decision making, and in another day they're not. And we immediately think, oh, they're faking it. But that's not necessarily the case, especially if we're dealing with dementia. Dementia is not like this progressive decline. Some days are good days and some days are bad days. And those synapses sometimes connect and sometimes they don't. And so before we jump to the anger of saying, you're lying, or you know how to do this, or you did this yesterday, and we think that they're just being difficult to undermine us, sometimes the synapses just aren't working. The second rule in maintaining our cool is to embody patience. This is really, really hard. Exercising patience really is key to being able to work with your loved one. But first, you have to exercise the patience for yourself and understand that you are dealing with things as a family caregiver that you haven't experienced before. Unless you have a medical degree and you have worked in the healthcare industry, the things that you are trying to take care of for your loved one are all new to you. Don't forget, there's people who have this as a profession who get paid to take care of people like our loved ones. And so it should be no surprise that it doesn't come easy to you. You have talents in other areas. This wasn't necessarily the talent or the job that you expected to be doing. So facing some of the things like toileting, having to have the conversation with your loved one of the opposite sex on how to clean them, right? Those are hard things. And so you have to be patient with yourself as you learn how to do these things, how you learn how to do these things compassionately, not just for your loved one, but for yourself too. As I work with my father, who suffered lung cancer, I feel like every week there was something new, right? There was the day that he, was told that he had to be on oxygen, and we had the containers of the oxygen and they came and they delivered it. And it seemed like before long, he couldn't even walk, from the living room to his bedroom, probably like 25 feet without wearing the oxygen. So then the next step was convincing him he had to wear the oxygen all the time. And then the concentrator was brought into the house, and that was a fiasco because it was too loud. And so I had to come up with the idea that I'm going to put the concentrator in this middle room that was between the living room and his bedroom. And I ran tubing out to the living room. And he ran the concentrator off of that. And the sound of the concentrator then was in the other room. And every day it was like problem solving something different. And then it was like he couldn't get to the kitchen. And then he couldn't get things out of the refrigerator for himself because he was too weak. And he was becoming more and more angry with each piece of independence he was losing through this process. And we were becoming more and more angry because he was more and more angry, right? So exercising patience for yourself and for them can be really, really helpful. I remember in particular, as my father was declining and talking about the kitchen, my mother was also declining too with dementia. And he would come to the kitchen table and demand things. And he was so frustrated that it got to the point that he would just tap his knife on the table and point to things that he wanted. And I remember one particular day, he wanted eggs, sunny side up eggs. And my mother was losing the ability to be able to cook. And, she'd lost the ability to cook well, and then she was really losing the ability to cook at all. And I just wanted to hurry it up, right? Because my father was being impatient. I was then being impatient because my mother wasn't moving fast enough to deal with his impatience. And it really was just this conflict. None of us had any patience or compassion for one another. And then, through all of that, my mother overcooked the eggs, threw it in front of him, and then he was upset because he didn't have anything to dip his dippy eggs in, the toast. So, just having and taking a breath and having patience is actually soothing. Soothing for you, soothing for them. And sometimes just saying to them, I understand. I'm frustrated too. Coming clean, right? So that they see that you recognize it and you acknowledge it. All right. Rule number 3. This one might hit some of you the wrong way, but listen to me and hear me out here. Rule number 3 is that we have to dispose of the martyr syndrome. What's a martyr? A martyr is a person who gives up everything for a cause, right? They give up everything they have and throw it all in on whatever their cause is. And it can be very easy to do this as a caregiver because we're fixers, right? We want to solve the problems. We want to get in there. We want to take care of it. We want to foresee the problems down the line so that we can solve those so that we don't have to deal with it. But before long, all of a sudden when we look around, because we're the ones that believe that we can solve the problems the best, we isolate ourselves because we don't trust anybody else to come and to help solve the problems too. And we think, oh, woe is me, nobody is here to help. But did we put ourselves in that situation? Is there help available? And we choose not to accept the help because we can think that we can do it faster, we can do it better, we know the answers, we understand our loved one better. But could there be another solution with us having to give up everything, our own responsibilities, our own personal families, our jobs, our coworkers, that get the worst of us because we think we're doing the best job for our loved one? We want to be there to help and to take care of our loved one, but not being at our best while we're doing that leads to more frustration on their part as well as on our part. So one of the things that we have to do to overcome that martyrdom syndrome is for us to actually take time for ourselves. And so many of us as caregivers see that as being selfish, right? I shouldn't have time away. If they're dealing with whatever the ailment is or the confusion or, the disease, why should I have time away from it? Almost like we punish ourselves as a method of guilt in helping to take care of them. But we have to understand that if we don't take time for ourselves, we're not giving the best of ourselves to our loved one. If all we do is give and give and give, we're going to end up becoming ill ourselves, whether it be through our emotions, right? And mentally suffering from depression or anxiety, or physically because we're just plain old getting run down. And ultimately, our bodies are going to say, you have to stop. And our bodies are going to say it in the form of some kind of sickness. So taking time away. Now, taking time away, having a break, which is really the second way for us to overcome the martyrdom syndrome, that time away is all relative, right? You get into a frustrating situation with your loved one if they're not cooperating with you. Time away by walking out of the room, walking outside, going for a walk, whatever it might be, that change of scenery for 10, 15, 30 minutes could be what you need to be able to come back and address the situation with patience. But time away can also mean an afternoon off, a day off, a 2-week vacation, whatever it would need to be for you. And there's all sorts of ways to handle that. And you and I can talk about that in a private support session. But, we feel like there's nobody out there to help us. But when we think about our care circle, there are a number of people and a number of organizations who really can come and help us. Yeah, they might not be there at the click of a finger, but with some planning, you can get the time that you need to rejuvenate you, to make you a better caregiver for your loved one because you got your energy back. And let's not forget, very practically, the more time that we spend with our loved one, doing chores, doing the medication, doing the laundry, doing the fixing up, answering the questions, solving the problems, if we're the only one that our loved one interacts with, we're not necessarily doing them any favors. Getting time away and bringing in other faces is really good for your loved one socially. They need to hear from other people. They need to see other people, right? So it's not a bad thing to have somebody come in and relieve you for a period of time. You can even still stay in the house, right? Just to know somebody else is there, entertaining, answering the questions, having the conversations. I mean, don't you sometimes just run out of things to say? And what you end up saying are always like commands. Do this, don't do that. Put this here, put that there. Where did this go? Where did that go? I asked you this the other day. You already asked me that question, right? Isn't that what our conversations turn into? But if we bring in a fresh face, the social side to things for your loved one can help you and it can help them as well. So, forgiveness, patience, and a little bit of selfishness to give yourself time can help relieve that martyrdom syndrome. And so maybe you're not finding yourself saying, I can't take it anymore. Maybe you find yourself saying, I need a break, right? So you manage your cool and you can come back and you can do your job the best that you know how. Now, let me be really honest here. If you truly believe that you cannot do it anymore, that's okay. You know, you get to make the choice if caregiving is something that is right for you. It doesn't have to be a life sentence to taking care of your loved one yourself. You can still care for your loved one by providing another person, opportunity, agency, facility to come and to give direct care to your loved one. It doesn't have to be you. You're still orchestrating it, you're still guiding it, but you don't have to be the person who's always doing the heavy lifting for your loved one. It's okay to find other solutions to help them. That doesn't make you any less of a caregiver. And in most cases, it makes you the best part, the better part of caregiving because you're doing what you're good at. So just like I say, take time away so you can come back and be rejuvenated. Maybe your rejuvenation is that you have somebody else come in. So now when you're with your loved one, you're in the moment, you're with them, you're having conversations. You're not just telling them what to do and giving them all sorts of demands. You get to have your own life. And if that sounds really foreign to you, then you definitely want to sign up to a support session. And we need to talk this through. And it doesn't necessarily be something that, happens overnight. It can be something that we work through and we plan on and we see what it looks like as we hold up your personal situation in every light to see how we can make it work for you and your loved one. You do have a say in this. All right. So let's work to manage our cool so that in the end, we are still looking at our loved one as someone we love and have compassion for.